everybody, I'm Jesse Weber, and welcome to Law and Crime's live coverage of the Sean Diddy Combs criminal trial at a federal court in New York. A lot happening today. I say that every day, but there is always a lot happening. This is one of those cases where I feel like every day is important in the prosecution's case. And I'll get into who the witnesses are. We're going to have Elizabeth Millner up, our Law and Crime reporter, who just exited the courtroom, talk to us about today's testimony. And we have an all-star panel to take your questions for the next hour or so. Everything that happened today, everything that's been happening in this case, but I also have to call out the fact that we have viewers all across the world. We have viewers from Australia, Slovenia, Germany, the UK, California, Canada, Maryland, Wisconsin, Stone Mountain, Georgia, New Jersey. So thank you so much for everybody for tuning in. We'll take your questions. But I want to go to Elizabeth Millner, Law and Crimes reporter, outside the courthouse right now. A lot happening today, Elizabeth, and I want to start with the fact that Frank Piazza, this digital forensics expert, took the stand. Why was he so important to today's testimony and the trial in general?
Well, Jesse, first off, I have to say it was perfect timing because the ambulance just passed by me as you were asking me this question. Also, I just want to shout out Germany for watching this. Little known fact about me is I actually grew up in Germany. But just as far as Frank Piazza's testimony goes, I was really kind of looking forward to his testimony. What did he have to say just about the Intercontinental Hotel video and just dissecting it to make kind of a compilation video of it for the government after the government asked them to. And so there were a lot of objections in the interim of this, even before Frank Piazza took the witness stand, mainly because the defense didn't like the idea of this compilation video going back as an exhibit when the jury does go forward and deliberate on this case, and that is coming obviously later on. But as far as the compilation video that we saw, it was kind of what it sounds like, a compilation video of the surveillance video from the Intercontinental Hotel incident, as well as the cell phone video that was taken by Officer Israel Flores, who now works for LAPD. However, at the time, he was working for security for the hotel. And so what we see in this particular compilation video is the first 10 seconds, Cassie is walking with her black bag, walking down the hallway in the direction of her camera. The next 20 seconds, we see multiple angles of Cassie walking down that hallway. You can see black frames kind of where Frank Piazza had spaced out just the differences as far as the camera angles go. So for example, if one camera angle shows Cassie walking before they go to the next camera angle, they put a black frame in there. And that was just something that the government did because the defense kind of didn't like it just playing in full, making it present to the jury like this was just the events that had happened. So what they did was put those black frames in. Then the next 4 minutes of the video, you can see Diddy running down the hallway. He's kicking, he punches Cassie, he drags Cassie once he meets her in that elevator lobby, which we've already seen at this point. Then Diddy grabs Cassie's bags. Cassie makes a call using that hotel phone on the wall. And then Diddy walks back to the hotel room. He reemerges without Cassie's bags. He grabs a cell phone from Cassie. He throws a vase at Cassie. Then the next 5 minutes of that video, because this video was about 11 minutes and 30 seconds altogether. And so we see Cassie using the hotel video. Diddy says something to her. Cassie puts her hands up. Then Israel Flores arrives to the elevator. You see the cell phone video at that point kind of take over. So before we were just watching the surveillance video and how it was compiled together. But when Officer Flores appears, you can see that is the cell phone video that he had taken of just the native system that Frank Piazza calls it. So it was essentially Officer Israel Flores taking cell phone video from the surveillance system that they had at the hotel in 2016. And so then you kind of see the cell phone video zoom in a little bit. And if you go back to Officer Flores' testimony, you see that cell phone zoom in because he was like making a comment about his shoes. And mind you, everyone, while we're watching this video, there is no audio to it. So it's not like we're hearing the words that were exchanged between Cassie and Diddy. None of that. We're not hearing Officer Israel Flores and his, I guess, commentary over the cell phone video. None of that. It was complete silence. And so then we see Cassie walk away. Israel Flores makes a call on the hotel phone. It ends the cell phone video portion of just that compilation, I should say. Then you see Diddy reappearing in the hallway. Officer Flores follows behind him. Diddy and Israel Flores are seen talking in this hallway. Cassie reemerges on the opposite side of the hallway, goes towards the hotel room. Then you see Israel Flores, Diddy, Cassie go off camera. Cassie reemerges holding her bags. Then Officer Flores reemerges. Then Diddy reemerges holding a cell phone. And so by the end of the clip, what you see is Diddy putting that cell phone to his ear, and then the video ends. And so as far as just kind of where we were from this video altogether. It was something that we've already seen. But in this sequence that Frank Piazza put together, we're kind of seeing just a sequence of events. And again, there are black frames kind of in the middle of that. But I think what's also interesting, Jesse, is that Frank Piazza also examined the sexually explicit videos or the freak-off videos. And so we saw a stipulation from the parties that these videos, which weren't shown in court today, by the way, the jury didn't see any of these videos, but we did see a stipulation between the parties that these videos came from October 8th of 2014, December 4th of 2014, October 14th of 2012, and October 20th of 2012. And there were just multiple videos outside of that. And so what Piazza did with those particular sexually explicit videos is he just enhanced the sound of it. And so again, we didn't see the videos play out in court. We didn't see the jury watching these videos, nothing like that. But according to Frank Piazza's testimony, what they did say again is that he enhanced the audio or the sound to these particular videos.
And I understand that the prosecution was trying to make the point that these videos are accurate, they are reliable, they depict what happened. And then real quick on cross, where were they going with this? Because it's an interesting thing. People who've been following this case know, and maybe not the jury necessarily, but us know, 2 days after CNN published the video, the 2016 video of Sean Combs appearing to beat Cassandra Ventura, he comes out on Instagram and apologizes for it. So my thought was they basically abandoned any effort to say, you know, this is a fabrication, this isn't him. They got to say it's him. They've been saying it's more domestic violence and not sex trafficking. Where did they go when questioning Mr. Piazza? I mean, what did they say about this?
Yeah, it was just interesting, the line of questioning during the cross-examination, as it kind of always is, where you're always wondering, where is this going? And so right off the bat, Tinny Garagos, who conducted the cross-examination, was just asking Frank Piazza, what was the source or your understanding of the source of this video and how it came into your possession? Piazza replies that the surveillance video was exported from the native system, and the cell phone video was the recording from the native system. Piazza says that he wasn't sure how the surveillance video itself outside of the the cell phone video came into the government's possession. So I think bottom line is we still don't know how this original surveillance video came to be and how it's still kind of a thing and how the government was able to obtain it. But then we go back to the hotel video showing the elevator bank, showing the lobby. But what the defense was really kind of focusing on during the cross was really just the timestamps, and the timestamps kind of jumping around in between these different cuts of the video. And so we see one timestamp go from 10:50 to 10:56, and then Piazza was kind of explaining that this kind of corrects itself. It has something to do with the motion activated system within the hotel as far as their surveillance video goes, because if you go back to Flores' testimony, he talks about how they were motion activated cameras. So even at a point where it seems like Diddy and Cassie are just kind of standing there in this video, because the motion center isn't kind of connecting that these two are human beings and these two are kind of moving even with their breaths, something like that, still the timestamp can still jump, because again, the cameras for the most part aren't recognizing that these are motion activated, that they're in motion at these particular points. And so really it was just a lot of questioning just about the timestamps and how they were jumping from 11:57 to 12:08, and how it's kind of it's not uncommon for security systems to do these types of things.
Yeah, I don't know if the jury's going to be saying anything was manipulated, or they are going to be taking away that it doesn't accurately depict. I think they get the main crux of it, but this was an important witness. But now we have to talk about the next witness. I know you have to go back to court soon, so I want to talk about her, Brianna Bongolan. And hopefully I'm saying her last name correct. Please correct me if I'm saying it wrong. Brianna Bongolan. This is a person we've heard about before. We know that she claims Combs held her over a 17th-story balcony. She has filed her own separate lawsuit against him. But here's what's interesting. We find out that apparently she wanted to invoke her Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination, but she testified now under an immunity order. So she's granted some sort of protection. Was curious, why would she need it? Well, during the course of her testimony today, I think we got the answer to that. What did she testify to so far, Elizabeth? Because I understand she's still on the stand.
Yeah. So Bana was someone I was really kind of looking forward to her testimony, mainly because I remember covering her civil lawsuit against Sean Diddy Combs. But even before that, it seemed like Cassie alluded to this incident over hanging Bana over the 17-story balcony at her apartment in Cassie's lawsuit back from November of 2023. So I feel like that's where the direction of this testimony is leading to. But we did get a little kind of tease of it at the beginning when Bana had taken the stand. So this particular incident happened in late 2016, where Diddy allegedly held Bana over that 17-story balcony. She explained that she had bruises and back pain after this particular incident. But as far as just her invoking her Fifth Amendment right and just the immunity order that she was given, I think it had a lot to do with just the drugs and how she would either provide drugs to Cassie. At times she would give Diddy drugs, and she explained that she gave Cassie drugs or sold Cassie drugs like oxy pills and ketamine, whereas with Diddy in particular, that she had at one point given or sold Diddy cocaine. But as far as Bana's testimony goes, it kind of went vice versa too, where Diddy gave Bana drugs including ecstasy, cocaine, ketamine, or GHB, and Bana explained that she didn't do GHB or G, as she calls it, on the witness stand before actually being introduced to the drug by Sean Combs, or Puff as she calls him, while she's testifying on the stand. And so that's where we were kind of getting to, and even the threats that Diddy had allegedly made to Bana, as far as "I'm the devil, I can kill you," and then that's kind of where the lunch break kind of happened. And so we expect kind of more testimony, especially for her direct, to continue once we get back from lunch.
Yeah, and I see we already have questions coming in about how her testimony relates to the overall case. We will talk about that. Before I let you go, Elizabeth, real quick, any reaction from the jury today that you thought was notable? Any reaction from Diddy you thought was notable?
Yeah, so as far as Diddy goes today, I did think at times that, since the surveillance video was played over and over and over again, there might be points that he would look away or kind of look towards the witness stand or just something, because when these really kind of hard pieces of evidence against him kind of come about, he normally just kind of looks straight to the witness stand. He doesn't have any much reaction. But as far as when Tinny Garagos, for example, was doing the cross-examination of Frank Piazza, I did see him just very intently looking at that computer screen as the video kept playing over and over again. Even as they're going frame by frame by frame of this video, I saw him looking at the timestamps, or presumably looking at the timestamps, but definitely keeping his eyes on this video. Even when Bana took the witness stand, I will say that I did see Diddy kind of turn around in his chair at the defense table, watch her walk into kind of the bullpen area where all the lawyers sit, where the jury sits, and watched her as she took the witness stand. Now, as far as the jurors are concerned, I will say I did see them, especially during Frank Piazza's testimony, definitely kind of monitoring and looking at all the exhibits that are shown to them in front of their kind of computer screens right in front of them. Even during the cross-examination, when they were going time code by time code, frame by frame, timestamp by timestamp, you know what I mean, that they were all kind of intently looking at it from the angle that I could see. And I know a lot of people are like, we need to get Elizabeth a better angle, but the public sits on the best side to see the jurors. I just want to say that we are always trying to get try to see a reaction from us on the press side, but one day we'll get there, hopefully.
Hopefully. Elizabeth Millner, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And, I wish we get more questions about your time in Germany. Maybe we'll talk about that on Sidebar, because you're going to come on Sidebar later today, give us a full breakdown of the all the day's events. So thank you so much. Good seeing you.
Thanks, Jesse.
All right, so now we get to bring in our expert panel on all of this as we take your questions for the next hour. I'm joined by criminal defense attorney, former prosecutor Safa Robinson-Ferrer, criminal defense attorney William Corman, and in studio with me, trial attorney and legal analyst Misty Maris. Great to have you all here. Misty, I'm going to start with you since you're in studio with me. Is this the reason why Brianna Bangolin needed immunity? Is it the idea that she is what maybe the prosecution is going to characterize a co-conspirator in the racketeering criminal enterprise because of the drugs?
I had a feeling that this was going to be drug related. Keep in mind, anytime that there's distribution or use of drugs, that could be criminal activity. So she's going to be testifying about the use of drugs, obtaining drugs for these individuals. And so it doesn't even have to go so far as to be a co-conspirator in the racketeering enterprise. It could be enough just that she's involved in that drug distribution, and she's not going to want to, under oath, get up there and start talking about that and presumably open herself up to criminal consequences.
She's not the first person in this case who's asked for some sort of protection. Right. Got a question from Shop Girl. Is Jesse Weber a lawyer? I am, believe it or not, an attorney. Passed the bar, went to law school, passed the bar, practiced for several years, got out of it. My fellow panelists are much braver than I am. I went into TV, but they are fighting the good fight. Okay, so Safa, let me go to you. This is a question from Shai. Can Diddy be subpoenaed? I guess the question is, can he be subpoenaed and compelled to testify in this criminal case?
No, he cannot. Mr. Combs has the right to remain silent, and of course he's going to exercise that right. It's a constitutional right, so he cannot be subpoenaed to testify. Now, if he makes the choice to testify on his own behalf, he has the right to do that as well, but he cannot be subpoenaed. He cannot be compelled to testify.
William, we've got a question from Olivia E. How does Bongolan's testimony play into the prosecution's case of RICO and other charges?
Well, I think it's key testimony, and I think that's why the prosecution not only wanted to have her there, but also was willing to give her immunity. The acts that she's testifying to regarding the drugs, I think, are very important. I think what she saw in the room, she's one of those people that they actually put in the room where it happened, and I think her testimony is key. I anticipate that we're going to hear her talking about exactly what Diddy was doing in the room, Diddy's relationship with guns, Diddy's relationship with violence, Diddy's relationship with drugs, and all those things are key. Again, if the government didn't think she was important, I doubt they would have given her immunity in the first place.
There are three things I think she does, and I agree with you. One, she corroborates Cassie's testimony about abuse. Two, she talks about the threats, the violence, which goes to this overall pattern of criminal conduct for the racketeering charge. I mean, if you look at the opening paragraphs of pick which indictment you want, there's been a number of them, but if you look at it, it talks about how Sean Combs used his resources and his business and his staff to further a campaign of abuse against women. This just highlights it. And three, drugs, one of the underlying predicate crimes of racketeering. The prosecution has to prove too, there's arson, there's kidnapping, there's forced labor, there's drug offenses. And if you're talking about supplying drugs that were used potentially in freak-offs or just used in general, and you're talking about this criminal enterprise, she was allegedly a part of it or not, that helps to further this. Again, racketeering conspiracy, couldn't have agreed with himself to further criminal activity. He had to have an agreement with others, including the people around him. Okay, got a question for you, Misty. This is from YouTube Me. How can the defense differentiate between a celebrity couple's efforts to maintain their privacy from public scrutiny versus bribery for a crime in relation to the video with Diddy and Cassie at the hotel? So this is back to yesterday, right? The idea of paying for the tape. Is it a crime, or is it, I'm just protecting me and my girlfriend?
Well, that's actually exactly what the defense was getting at in cross-examination, and I would expect this to be even further explored when you get to the point of summation. Remember, on cross-examination, there was a question specifically asked about the non-disclosure agreement that was signed by the security guard when he accepted the bribe to get rid of the last copy of the tape. And the focus was on a provision that is a carve-out, meaning you can't disclose this to anybody, the existence of the tape. But you know who you can? The government. If you're called via subpoena, you are to comply. This does not stop you from complying with any kind of investigation. So that language would tend to show, from a defense perspective, a very typical NDA, which in every case is going to have that provision. The other piece of it is, Jesse, the testimony said that Cassie did not want to call law enforcement in. So here's my perspective on it if I'm the defense.
Yeah.
You got a great civil case. And I actually see why she settled a case with the Intercontinental for $10 million, which we found out at the end of her testimony. Because you have security guards totally not going by protocol. Obviously, the right thing to do in that situation is to call law enforcement no matter what anybody says. And to preserve the tape. But they didn't do that. So from a civil perspective, excellent, failure to secure case. From a criminal perspective, is it obstruction? And I think when the defense is going to say, well, no one was really stopping him from talking to law enforcement. Look at it, it's right there in black and white.
And bribery of a witness, right? I agree with you. The $10 million, I think I said it once before, like, the prosecution say, good. You think that goes to her credibility about why she's going after Diddy?
It means
$10
they
million.
did something wrong.
No.
Yeah.
The hotel did something wrong. The only thing I'll push you back on and curious is, the allegation was, did he force Cassie to say, hey, get this tape for us? The other way of looking at it is, according to Eddie Garcia, Combs was like, don't make big purchases. That's a little strange, right?
Right. It makes it sound a bit
More
more
nefarious.
nefarious. Is he the one who drafts the NDAs? I would say no. I will say two things, and I agree with you. This is the type of thing that the jury can take in either way. But looking at it from the prism of a defense perspective, I would say, well, Cassie went back to her home with her friend, and her friend wanted to call law enforcement. Cassie did not want that to happen. So that desire to get law enforcement involved kind of takes away from that argument. And I would also say the most harmful part of that NDA to me is that it was not with Sean Combs as an individual. It was with one of Sean Combs' enterprises.
Wow.
So that's going to link it back into RICO. That this is not just him in his personal capacity. This links back to his businesses, which prosecutors say are just fronts for his criminal activity and racketeering.
Good point. All right, we have a super chat comment from Carol Mogan. Thank you so much. Hi from Australia. Wow, 2:45 a.m. here, getting tired, but worth staying up for the great coverage by Jesse and Elizabeth. Thank you so much, Carol. Really, really appreciate it. I know you were posting questions earlier in the week as well. So if you have any questions, and before you go to bed, shoot them out here. We'll make sure to answer them. Okay, Safa, question from Zachary Anderline. How can it be RICO if it's just him? Is KK, Christina Quorum, going to testify? And if not, shouldn't she be charged as well as his head of security, Fahim Muhammad? Very weird to me. That's a fair question.
Most definitely. And right now he's charged as an individual. He doesn't have any co-defendants, which is really interesting because oftentimes with RICO cases, you see a number of co-defendants, and that's not the case here. So he is charged individually. His team members, including KK, essentially would be a part of that enterprise and further the enterprise, as the government would argue or allege. However, the government wants this testimony, and I do expect that we will hear from her and her testimony to further the RICO charges, to essentially show that, there was this plan, that it furthered the enterprise, that she was, yes, a part of it, and maybe she'll be granted some sort of immunity. The government hasn't gone after anybody else associated with Mr. Combs at the moment, and I don't think that they will. I think that they would have indicted those individuals with Mr. Combs if they intended on going forward with charges against them. But as of right now, he is their focal point, and I think Mr. Combs will continue to be their focal point. And yes, we will hear from some of the individuals, probably KK, in this trial going forward.
So if anybody's interested, we posted, I think it was yesterday, maybe the day before, a sidebar episode where we took all the critical times that KK has been mentioned in this trial and talking about how it fits into the overall case and whether or not she's going to testify. If you want to check it up, it's on Law&Crime's YouTube page. But here we got a question, William, from Anthony Rosato. This is something we've been getting a lot. Curious if you can provide some commentary on it. If convicted, can the feds go after Diddy's money?
Absolutely. That's one of the hallmarks of a RICO case. In a situation like this, the properties that he owns, if any of the money went to buy those properties, if anything happened in any of those properties, he has exposure. So his exposure, isn't limited just to his freedom. It isn't just criminal exposure, but there's some financial aspects of it as well. I would be surprised if they didn't. I mean, we've heard testimony about things happening at these different properties at different places he owned. We heard about the freak-offs happening in a number of places. So yeah, that could all be fair game. That could all be up for grabs.
I got a question. I'll throw this back to you, Safa. This is from L. Spelunker. Suge Knight said in his interview he hopes Puff gets on the stand and tells his whole truth. Do you see that happening at all under any circumstances, or is it just too much of a chance to take?
I personally think it's way too much of a chance to take. However, Mr. Combs, he has that right to testify if he chooses. And a lot of times, individuals who are in domestically violent partnerships, they like to control the narrative. I mean, it's clear here that this case was at least rooted and the relationship between him and Miss Ventura was domestically violent in nature. So there's no question about that at this point. Individuals who are engaged in those types of relationships, specifically what would usually be the aggressor, they like to continue to control the narrative. So it wouldn't surprise me if he did ultimately get on the stand and testify.